Hello and welcome to this workshop on a guide to living with perfectionism. The problem with perfectionism is that not all perfectionists know that they are perfectionists because they think perfectionists are perfect. My name is Katrina Horn. I'm a life coach and I'm a dream life designer. I help my clients close a gap from their real lives to their ideal lives so that they get to live more of their ideal life. And one of the things that could be getting in the way of you living your ideal or your dream life is if you're a perfectionist. And I think you're going to understand why right away. If you're here live, you're more than welcome to participate in the chat. If you're watching the replay on YouTube, you are welcome to comment below. If you're here live, your comments won't be in the replay, so we won't be able to read them later. I'm just saying that in case you want to really go all in and participate fully here. Feel free to say anything you like in the chat. As I said, perfectionists are not perfect, right? Although we believe that, well, of course, a perfectionist would be perfect. This is not true. Perfectionists procrastinate. They are messy and disorganized. They have a lot of clutter. They tend to start and then stop things. They don't follow through, and they engage in a lot of avoidant behavior. They hold themselves to impossibly high standards, and please stress the idea of impossibly high standards. You'll see why. And they're constantly thinking about what other people are thinking about them. So this puts perfectionists under a lot of pressure. Of course, they're striving towards perfection, but as perfection is not of this world, they're striving for something that is impossible. So they typically don't take action on their dreams. So they tolerate, they put up with, they settle for something less. They put things off for later, and they engage in what we call tomorrow thinking. I don't know who coined that phrase, but I really like it, this tomorrow thinking. Oh, as today has already started and it is not perfect, I won't start something that I want to be perfect today. I'll wait till tomorrow. That way I can start the perfect day. Or as we are on Thursday now, let's just wait till Monday because then I'll have the whole perfect week. You see what I mean? That's tomorrow thinking. And they stop themselves from taking action because they might not take the right action. So there's this idea of right and wrong. And when we're not talking about morals, or rules or laws, well, there's everything in between the right and wrong that perfectionists tend to ignore. They fear getting whatever they do wrong so much that they prefer no action, because if they get it wrong, they make it mean that they're not good enough, that they're somehow unworthy. And they're doing all of that. They're putting themselves under all that pressure, under all those negative thoughts, wondering what other people are thinking of them. So they're laboring under the flawed premise that perfect exists. And as long as you live up to the perfect, or as long as you at least prove yourself to be not far from it, you'll be accepted, you'll be loved. So not only is their self-worth tied to how they perform, which needs to be perfect, they also feel that should they fall short of perfect, they're somehow unacceptable, they're somehow unlovable. And that is really what's at the core of this problem. So if you're a perfectionist, you believe that you have to work more, you have to do more, right? It's not good enough what you're doing now because it's still not perfect. You believe you lack skills or ability. and nothing could be further from the truth. You think that perfection is the only standard worth striving for. You think that failure defines who you are. And you think that taking action is dangerous because you might get it wrong. Also, you don't trust yourself to make the decision, make the choices, because there's one right solution, right? There's one right choice, making all of the others wrong, and you must spot it. And I sent out an email with an analogy about that. And I talked about the perfectionist who wants to have the best meal ever. So imagine this person, which could be you, right? Out there in town thinking, I want the best meal. But this person has not defined what the best meal is. They don't know. So they're thinking, oh, is it Mexican? Is it Italian? Is it French? Is it Spanish? Oh, what is it? What is it? So they're going around all the time thinking, oh, I don't know what the best restaurant is. I can't find it. And then you're thinking, oh, if I choose Mexican, maybe that will be the wrong choice. And maybe Alex will think I'm ridiculous or stupid for making that choice. So they might end up not eating anything and having to settle for what's left over. Do you see what I mean? This is so tragic, of course, not with the restaurant, but if you take that image and transfer it onto other areas of your life, then you get to see, well, yes, actually, I could be missing out on a lot of good meals or something else in life, right? I could be missing out just because I haven't defined what it is I'm looking for, knowing that there is no perfect and there is no one right choice. I'm sure you can see that when we're talking about restaurants and food, that Italian is not right and French wrong, right? It's a question of taste. So what you will get out of this workshop is you'll understand why you procrastinate. So this is the awareness from which we can take action, right? We need to be aware of what it is we're doing. We have to spot it. We have to notice it, not to start criticizing ourselves, not to judge it, but to be able to change it. So once you've spotted it, you can then attempt doing something different. And you might even be inspired to do some really big things that you've been afraid of doing before. You'll define what's good enough. And I'll take you through an exercise, because as long as we've got this vague notion of something up there, I'm striving for, I'm aiming for something perfect, well, then we can't hit it because it doesn't exist. So let's define different standards. Let's just define what is good enough so that you can achieve it. And you'll have the tools to build a new mindset so that you won't make these, or this idea of failure or the fear of mistakes define who you are. This will save you money and time, heartache, stress, and it will save you from starting and stopping things all the time, trying something out, putting effort into it, and then stopping because it's not perfect. And then sitting there with all the disappointment, telling yourself that, once again, I've done it wrong. So I'm talking to you about this because I'm an expert in perfectionism, because I used to be a big one. I took it so far that I studied classical music. And I don't know if you know anything about classical music, but it is, well, it was to me a toxic environment, because you are aiming to interpret something perfectly. You are constantly in class with teachers telling you, you did this wrong, you did this wrong, you did this wrong. That seems, or at the time, that was the mentality. You thought you would progress through criticism. So your attention would be drawn all the time to everything that could be much better, that wasn't good enough. And I was lapping it all up. I was integrating all of it. So when I started working as a musician, I was just obsessed with everything I did wrong. And if you think of it, when you play a whole concert, it could last for an hour and a half. I mean, you're bound at some point not to be perfect, right? Even the greatest stars, even the most seasoned musicians, well, if they want to focus on what could be better, they will find something. And that what could be better, when you're a perfectionist, you don't see it as a way to progress. You see it as a fault. You see it as an error, as something that makes you unworthy. So that's what I've been through. I don't wish anybody to go through that. I'm still a recovering perfectionist, and it's really fun. It's quite fun because going through these slides just before this workshop, I noticed that there was a mistake. And so I left it, right? I'm leaving the mistake. Maybe you'll spot it, but I think it's all good. And you'll find out why. Like, I'm really inviting you to create awareness right now. So, as I said, we'll cover the awareness piece, procrastination as a protection mechanism. We'll do an exercise where we'll define exactly what is good enough. So instead of going for the perfect, you will have defined what is good enough for you, and that is what you'll be aiming for. I also want to get you slightly out of your comfort zone by making a mistake. And the idea behind that is we want to normalize the mistake. Not that we want to go out and make a lot of mistakes, right? But we just don't want mistakes to be the end of the world. Just want to open the door, have it a little bit open so that if a mistake occurs, we can not care so much about it, right? We can live with it. It's not the end of the world. So, are you with me on that? Are you ready? Let's dive into procrastination as a protection mechanism. So, if you attempt nothing, you can't get it wrong, can you? Like, if you just never have any ambition, if you don't do anything else, that what comes easily, what comes naturally, well, then you're safe. If you're pretty sure that whatever you do in life is something that you've rehearsed, something that you've done over and over, well, then you're safe. You feel safe. But so that would be the upside. But the downside to that is that you'll never do anything new. So you just be having your life on constant repeat, right? Always doing the same things, because doing anything else is completely scary because you might get it wrong. And that idea of getting it wrong or making a mistake or not succeeding will just have you feel so fearful that you won't do it. Or you will do it what I call half-heartedly. So you think in absolutes when you're a perfectionist. You think this is perfect. This is what I want. Anything short of that is unacceptable, right? And you're ignoring, as I said, what is in between. So aiming for the perfect, which is not possible, you'll be working towards it. But as you're working towards it, you will start self-sabotaging, because what if you did everything possible? What if you prepared a presentation, it was perfect, you rehearsed it, you had feedback on it, you were completely and totally happy with how it was, you went and did your presentation, it wasn't perfect. That would mean that your best was not good enough. So you will never allow yourself to do your best. Am I making sense? If I'm making sense, please put yes in the chat. So you're preventing yourself from ever doing your best, because if you do your best and then find out that it doesn't have you succeed, well, then you have to question your own worthiness, your own deservedness, really. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Andrea. Right? So this has got huge repercussions. You're setting yourself these high standards that nobody can achieve. So you don't get faced with that failure of not achieving them. Well, you don't do your best. So instead of preparing that presentation perfectly, instead of taking the time to do it, instead of planning it out, you procrastinate. And you procrastinate. And you don't do the work. So when you get to the day of the presentation, you tell yourself, oh, had I had the time, had it been possible, I would have done my best and it would have been perfect, right? You can still tell yourself that as you have done everything not to have those conditions in place. So that's really at the root of procrastination. It is that fear of having done your best and not have that be perfect, not have that be good enough. You see what I mean? Think of an exam. Maybe you've passed an exam in your life and you were so keen to get the best mark, like you're an A student. You couldn't live with anything below, yet you had been collecting all these C pluses and B minuses, sometimes a B plus, right? Because you never really committed to it. You never did your best for fear of discovering that it wasn't good enough. So think about that. Is that something you recognize from your own life? And I'm going into an example just in a few minutes. But think about, oh, where am I not committing fully to something? Where am I sort of halfway doing it? I mean, I know so many people who, let's take something really mundane, who invite people for dinner, and then they think, oh, I will make this fantastic meal and I will set this beautiful table and there'll be flowers and blah, blah, blah. And then they think so much about it and then they start doubting that it will be all that perfect. And then they start not taking the time to prepare it, not doing the shopping, not cooking it on time, not setting the table. And it all ends up what they think a failure, right? It ends up not being what it is they wanted it to be because they never gave themselves a chance to really do it wholeheartedly. So whether it's a dinner party, whether it's an exam, whether it's a job application. Yeah, Andrea. So Andrea is saying she does everything to be totally prepared in every detail, which is fantastic if it has you feel good. Right? When I was a musician, I prepared everything in the minutest detail. And then despite of that, something would sometimes go wrong. And that would have me feel really so bad, telling myself the most awful things. Yeah. It's exhausting, right? You're right, Andrea. It's absolutely exhausting. It puts so much pressure on you. Like today for this presentation, instead of being all nervous about it, I just told myself, let me enjoy it, right? I'm going to talk to great people like you. I'm going to share my knowledge. I've got some slides that I really like. I like my content. There's a mistake in my slides, but that's just life, isn't it? So how can I enjoy the whole experience? Like when I invite people for dinner, I really like to set a beautiful table. I like the food to be gorgeous and sumptuous, but I do what I can, knowing that, oh, it might not be like the best meal ever, but this is the best I could do under the circumstances. So perfectionism is working in absolutes. Let me summarize. If you're a perfectionist, you think there's only one result worthy of me putting effort into it, and that is perfection. Then you're looking at your real life and you're seeing that, oh, it won't be possible for me to reach the perfection. So you start doing your second best or your third best or whatever, because you're just so afraid that if you do your best, you'll discover that it's not good enough. Right? So let's move into a practical exercise, which is looking at what is unacceptable, what is good enough, and what is perfect. Right? Very practical. So I'm going to go on with this idea of doing a presentation. After the workshop, you can perhaps look at something else that you want to achieve, something you're working towards, and then do the same exercise. But we're just using this as an example. And at the end, perhaps you can mention something you want to work on, and maybe I can be useful for you in breaking it apart or taking it apart, breaking it up. Sorry. So the unacceptable would be, I don't take time to prepare. I don't, in my presentation, get my message across. I look and feel awkward. That would be unacceptable. That is what you want to avoid. And now we want to define what the perfect is. And I want you to notice something. If you have a look at the column with perfect, you'll see that you want to research and get absolutely all of the right information. So that has you do, I mean, this is so typical of procrastination and perfectionists, that they do all the research. They do so much research that they haven't got time to do anything else, right? Maybe you could recognize that. Or maybe they do so much research that they never get out of the research. So what happens from there, it gets even more out of hand. What they're striving towards, the perfection they want, is that they're applauded for the brilliant presentation they made, and even further, at the end of it, they get a huge promotion. Right? That would be perfect. That's what they want. But just look at what is within their reach here. What is within their power? What is their responsibility here? Like, they've got no power to decide whether their audience will applaud. Like, they can't make them applaud. Maybe people applaud because they love it. Maybe they'll love it and just not applaud, right? But you can't control that. And you can't control either if or not you get a huge promotion at the end. So perfectionists tend to have lots of unachievables that are unachievable because they're out of their control, because they depend on somebody else. They're within somebody else's control. And the more we put out, the more we strive for something that we cannot control, the more anxiety provoking it is. And that's the other big thing about perfectionism. It is anxiety provoking because all of what you're striving for, or much of it, is not within your control. So what you want to do is to make sure that this column in the middle, the good enough, depends on you and on you only. And that it is achievable in the time frame with the resources you've got, right? It's not in the absolute. So good enough is adapting to the circumstances. So let's have a look at what we put in the middle column. I plan out my preparation, and you do that specifically. Like with my clients, we work a lot on putting things into a timetable, because once we look at our timetable, then we can follow it. And what doesn't fit into the timetable, we will have to let go of, right? When the timetable is full, we cannot cram anything else in. So we have to work around that. There are only 24 hours in the day. So when you plan out your preparation and then you follow it, you follow the plan, well, then you're putting all the chances of success on your side, instead of the perfectionist approach, which would be, oh, I'm going to research all the time. Oh, no, I can't research now because I have to go and pick the kids up, or I have to do something else, right? So they never actually get down to doing it. And if they're faced with this time on the timetable, like that is procrastination 2.0, you've got it on your timetable, you sit down to do it, and then you find that instead of doing the research, it's much more urgent to go and clean the windows. Or find out if anybody on LinkedIn has made a comment on your post or something like that, right? So they find it difficult to follow the timetable because it's uncomfortable. Because if they follow it, it means that they will have done their best, and they will be faced with whether their best is good enough. So, like for this presentation, my aim is to get my main points across. So if I do that, I'm happy. I'm not thinking I'll make the best presentation ever, right? I'm just thinking, let me get my main points across. Let me be really useful. Let people, or help me let people understand what this is really about. So let me get my main points across. This is within my control. I can focus down, whatever happens, make sure I get 3 points across, let's say. And another thing in my power is I can deliver the presentation being myself. So I'm not living up to what a presenter should look like, right? I'm not trying to be somebody else. I've got this image in my mind of what it should look like. I'm doing it here with you right now, and it will look like whatever it will look like, and that's okay. That's completely okay. So do you see how defining what is good enough? Well, from there, I can do one presentation, and next time I can want to change that. I can change my standards. I can change what I'm aiming for, as long as it's never perfect and it's always within my control. So whatever it is you're working on, if you've got a project or if you've got a sort of vague idea of what your dream life is, that's the other thing. I'm just going off on a tangent here for a minute. Talking about dream lives, well, maybe you know me enough to know that I want to live in a chateau. I want to live in a chateau so that I can have all my clients come and stay with me and enjoy the beauty and feel so good about themselves that they fall madly in love with themselves and go out and do beautiful things in the world. That's a sort of basic idea around that. But I'm not living in my chateau yet. If I'm thinking as a perfectionist, well, nothing is good enough till I get to live in my chateau. But as I'm out of perfectionism, I can now enjoy every day till I get to my chateau. I can enjoy everything I do before I get to my dream life. So again, with perfectionism, it's like this all or nothing thinking. Either I'm blissful in my chateau or life sucks, which is not true because there's everything in between. You see what I mean? Everything in between, and we can enjoy that journey. So that's a characteristic of high achievers. It is that they are working towards a goal and they enjoy the process. They enjoy the evolution in between. So keep it within your control. Make sure you aim for something that is achievable and then enjoy it once you get there. So one of my clients, she got made a partner in her company. She's an accountant. I don't think anybody can recognize her, but she's an accountant. She got made a partner. And then she came to me and she was feeling stressed out. She was unable to relax in the evening. She could only think of work, work, work. And I asked her, well, when you became a partner, how did you celebrate? Oh, I didn't, she said. Like, she'd been striving to become a partner in that firm for however long. And when she got there, she didn't even celebrate it. And maybe she didn't celebrate it because she was on to the next thing, right? Oh, done that, done that, done that. That's what we can get into when we think in these all or nothing terms. So striving towards a dream life, yes, but let's enjoy the process. Does that make sense? Let me know. Let me know if I'm not being clear, if you're not following me. I can talk about this forever, so don't tempt me either. Anyway, moving on, I want to challenge you to make a mistake. And please choose something where you can live with the consequences. Just looking into the chat. Thank you. Right. So, is there a mistake that you can make where you can live with the consequences? Now, I made a mistake in these slides. Don't know whether you noticed. So is there a mistake that you can make that would feel icky, but not hugely anxiety provoking? And why do I want you to do that? It's so that you normalize the idea that a mistake is possible and it doesn't destroy me. I can still get to feel good about myself. I can feel worthy. I can feel lovable. I can feel anything I want about myself, because if I make a mistake, it's a mistake and it doesn't mean anything about me. So what happens with many people is that they confuse their actions with their beings. So if they do something wrong, they think they are wrong. So that is different from knowing that I made a mistake and I am a mistake. So that sounds very yucky when you say I am a mistake. Right, sorry, I was just reading the comments. So, of course, none of us are mistakes, but all of us make ones, and that's perfectly okay. But how can you normalize that in your nervous system? So when you make a mistake, how can you have that feel just like, oh, I made a mistake? Right? No big deal. Everybody makes a mistake. I just made one. It's all cool. Right? So have you got any ideas? Let's inspire each other to see, yeah, laugh about it. You're right. So let's get some ideas going. What mistakes could we make that don't really jeopardize anybody and it isn't hugely frightening, just a little one? Or you could also say, oh, there's something I won't do, like, oh, today I won't hoover or vacuum clean. That would be in American English. I'll just leave it as it is. I won't tidy up. I'll just leave it up now. Because the perfectionists also find it difficult to not notice when something is not perfect, right? They spot a mistake. So they find it difficult to work if everything isn't tidy or something like that. Yeah. So, Marcella, it perhaps doesn't go against your nature. It goes against your upbringing, right? It goes against what you have learned in life. And of course, we don't want to deliberately make mistakes, especially mistakes that have consequences. But it's impossible to live a life without making mistakes. So the more we get used to feeling okay with it, the better. And I think it's also really good for us to be able to take criticism. Like if somebody says, you didn't take out the garbage. No, I forgot, mistake, right? Instead of going into the justification of it. Because what happens, imagine my husband comes in here and says, you didn't take out the garbage. I'd say, no, I didn't. I wouldn't even say sorry because I wasn't aware I had to do it, or like, I just didn't. But if you're a perfectionist and don't like criticism because it threatens who you are, not what you did, but who you are. So if he comes in and I'm reacting as a perfectionist, I would say, of course I didn't take out the garbage because, and then I would come up with an excuse or a justification. It's not the day where we take out garbage, or it's not for me to do it, or the garbage can isn't full, or something like that. We'll come up with a justification. And the good thing about being able to take criticism is that we don't care. Okay, yeah, no problem. Or even a mistake. Oh, you didn't put in petrol perhaps into the car. Yeah, I didn't. True. Right? I don't have to justify everything I don't do perfectly right. And when you take that burden off your shoulders of having to justify all your actions, all your doings, when you can just do and be whatever you want to, I mean, I'm not talking about harming other people, but just living a normal life without thinking up justifications all the time, well, then that feels really a lot lighter. so much weight off your shoulders. Right? So please go ahead and make a mistake. I'd love to have some ideas of what kind of mistakes you're going to make, if you've got any ideas. You could set your alarm clock wrongly, get up late, and arrive late. Right? Wouldn't that be fun? Oh my goodness, I'm going to be late. So that creates a little bit of stress, doesn't it? Just thinking about it. Oh, I'm going to be late. But all the time, if you can just normalize it, you can let it be stressful, and you can just talk to yourself saying, yeah, so I'm going to be late, not the end of the world. People are late. It's okay. Do you see what I mean? So you have to accept that it's going to feel not so good, right? It's going to bring some emotion up in you, but that's all just part of normalizing it. Okay. So Andrea says she's an artist. I'm thinking of painting a wall, not perfect. Yeah. Would there be any grave consequences to that or not? I'm wondering. Right? So you can choose something professionally or something in your personal life. You know, just make sure that you can live with the consequences. So don't have it be anything hugely like anxiety provoking. Okay. At home, yes. Can make one at home so you will know it. Oh, this is when I broke loose from perfectionism. This is when I changed my life. I did something knowingly not perfect. So let me just be clear here. I'm not telling you to go around going around doing everything badly, but we just want to have it be a possibility that we can make a mistake and not make it mean anything. Because the thing is, when we are perfectionists, we make it mean something. So when I was a harpist, I played in concerts, I made mistakes. I would make it mean that I shouldn't be playing, that I was unworthy, that I was no good, that I had no talent, right? And the people who listened to me, who applauded, who wanted my autograph and all of that, I thought, oh, they're not really understanding this because I made a mistake or several. How can they not see that? And I hate to say it, but it made me feel like superior because I'd spotted the mistakes. They hadn't. You see what I mean? Just looking at the time. So that was one example. We've got some more in the chat. Yeah, proofreading as a side job. Yes. Of course, it's good, Marcella, if you enjoy it. Proofreading is really easy for you because you've trained your mind to spot mistakes. So you can spot a mistake. That is not a problem. It's what you make it mean. It's a judgment you have about it. So let's say Marcella is proofreading and she's spotting a mistake. And then she thinks the person who's written it, oh, he or she must be an idiot. Now that's a judgment and it doesn't feel good. But if she says, oh, this is a busy person and he or she made a mistake. Good job, I'm here to correct it. That's not a judgment, right? It's just a mistake. Do you see the difference? I think proofreading is excellent for perfectionists because they spot everything that's wrong. It's a judgment we have of it that is dangerous. You're welcome. Yeah, nothing wrong with spotting mistakes, especially if it's part of your job. Like, we wouldn't want a doctor who was happy to make a lot of mistakes, right? So, I mean, making a mistake is just what unfortunately happens. And unfortunately, it happens to doctors too, right? We don't want to cultivate it, but we don't want the judgment about it. So that was an excellent example. Thank you. Thank you for making that very clear. Maybe I haven't insisted enough on that. So knowing that something went wrong, like I spotted my own mistakes in the slides. So I'm just not judging myself for it. I'm still seeing the mistakes. I'm still seeing where I could be better, right? I can still see where I can make progress. Do you see the difference here? It's the judgment we have about it. So when I'm summing up here the workshop, when you're no longer protecting yourself through inaction, and when you're willing to make mistakes and not make it mean anything about who you are, your worthiness, your lovability, you'll be able to take action with conviction instead of the half-hearted action you've been taking so far, telling yourself that this will never work. It never will work, you're right, because you haven't been doing your best. You've been doing substandard work because you've been putting yourself under pressure. You've not been giving yourself the circumstances that would allow you to do your best work. And just think, if you could do whatever it is you do for work without the pressure, think about the huge difference in your life to that. If you could let it be fun, right? If you could not try to control what is outside your control. Like today, my internet this morning was a bit wonky, but that is something that is outside my control today. So I could just say, I'm planning to show up for this workshop. I'm planning to be at my best, which is never perfect. What I'd like to say is always genuine, never perfect. So I'm showing up here, but if my internet gets cut off, then what can I do about that? I'm not going to stress myself out about it. I'm not going to put pressure on myself for something I cannot control, right? When you're shooting for perfect, you'll never hit your goal. When you determine, the way we have been, what's good enough, very precisely, adequately, you can aim and you can even hit it, right? Think of the presentation I used as an example. When you know that you can plan out your research, you can decide on 3 points you want to get across no matter what, earthquake or whatever happens, right? 3 points you want to get across, and then feeling like you're being yourself, you are being genuine, you are being who you are. That is all within your control. That can feel really good, right? Makes life so much more enjoyable. So when you start doing that, you'll start to focus more and more on progress and not the end result. So you'll be enjoying your way to your dream life, or whatever it is you want, your promotion, or whatever it is you want in life. It's about the journey and enjoying all of it. Perhaps not the mistakes, but being able to live with mistakes, because we're all bound to do some or make some, right? We will make mistakes. There will be failure. There will be errors. There will be things we want to do differently, which is all good. When you look at it like that, oh, I made a mistake. Next time, this is what I want to do instead. That is being focused on progress. And that is much more likely to get you to the end goal. Don't be like my client who forgot to celebrate when she got to her end goal. She just swept it off the table, focused on the next thing. From the outside, that looks like somebody hugely successful, but knowing that she had no social life, nobody to celebrate with, she felt constantly stressed out and it was affecting her health. Well, then you think, yeah, no. So I think that's also why some people don't want success, because they think they have to feel stressed out. They think they have to ruin their health. They think it has to be hard work. They think a lot of things about success that are not true. But my message here is really, don't let perfectionism steal your dream life. Something else is possible. You absolutely can drop the perfectionism, and it's so worth it. So that was the content of my workshop. That's what I wanted to share. Now, I don't want you to be sitting there waiting to do something about it. You can actually start changing it now. And your first step could be to book a consultation with me. Now, when you come to consultation, it can feel a little bit frightening to be sitting down, looking that closely at your life. You'll be coming with your unique circumstances and your specific problems, and I will help you see what is possible. So when you think about spending 1 hour with me, looking at what is possible for you in your life, imagine how that will make you feel. Imagine. So go ahead, please book a consultation. I'm going to put the link in the chat. Oh, that was not the link. So let me just go and get you the link. You can go ahead and book right now. And let me know if it's working. Last month, I think the link wasn't working, so that was creating a little bit of a panic. So the link to book a consultation is in the chat. If you don't like technology, you can just write me an email saying, I want a consultation. So on this consultation, I will show you what is possible, as I said. I will show you what it is you're doing now that is tripping you up. What processes you could be applying to get you out of the perfectionism so that you could feel good about doing your best, which is never perfect, but which is your best under the circumstances. It gives you direction in life. Together in this consultation, we'll define exactly what it is you want. So it's like the image I gave you of going to a restaurant. You won't be going around thinking, I want the best meal in town. You will know what you want. And once you know what you want, then you can go and get it, right? So we'll be determining exactly what that looks like to you. We'll be going into what you will be feeling. And feelings are really our best inspiration, I think. Because in life, you can really know whether you're you can know whether you're moving in the right direction by how you feel. So many of my clients think that if they're feeling fear, it must mean that what they're doing is not good. But that's not true. I mean, we all feel fear when there's change. So fear is normal. What I can help you do is normalize the feeling of fear, meaning teach your body that you could have those fear hormones, and feelings are just chemistry in your body, really. So all those substances circulating in your body, when you can normalize them in your subconscious, well, then you're okay with feeling a little bit of fear. And then you're okay with, if you make a mistake, oh, I just made a mistake, right? You're normalizing all of that. And that opens doors to doing so much more. Like I can say, I want to live in a chateau. I've got a plan of how I can get there. I know what I want it to look like. And I'm joyfully taking steps towards it every day, right? And that feels so good. When I get up in the morning, I don't always think of my chateau, but I always get up with so much enthusiasm and joy because I've taken that pressure off myself, right? I'm not saying that there is one right chateau, but I've got a very good idea of what I want it to look like. One day I will find it, right? But I'm working towards it using my intellect too, right? It's not just sitting here wishing. And that's really what procrastination does to you. It has you sit there and only dream. I talk about dream lives or ideal lives, but as long as you keep it a dream, you might not get to it. So how can you turn that dream into something achievable in easy little steps? Now that's what I can help you with. So when you come to the consultation, so please go ahead, tell me if the link is working. That would be fabulous news to me. So click on the link, find a time for you that suits you, and book yourself in. If you don't want to use the link, just send me an email. If you're watching this on YouTube, I'll put the link in the comments below, in the box below. I don't know what it's called, but information box perhaps. But anyway, you can find the link. If not, send me an email. I'll be so happy to meet up with you. It's the idea of opening up to more, right? We don't have to settle for what we've got right now. We don't have to be fearful of what is possible. We can have make what is possible feel good. That's about normalizing it in our body, our thoughts and our feelings. So once you get rid of the thought that there is a perfect and I must attain perfect to be lovable, to be worthy, whatever it is, well, then it's too risky. You see what I mean? It's too risky taking action. Because what if you take action and it doesn't work? Well, then what? Does that mean that you're unworthy? Does it mean you're unlovable? I mean, there's all of that to tidy up in your mind. And when you come to the consultation, I would point out some of the thoughts that are getting in your way. And when I say feeling unworthy, feeling undeserving, it's just like an umbrella term. So as a client told me, well, what can I do with that, Katrina? I'm feeling unworthy. What can I do with that? Well, you can't do anything, really. You've got to find the thought that is behind that for you. And that is all individual. You've got to find the precise thought that somewhere is in your system that you are thinking and that has you believe that you are unworthy. So when I was playing my harp and I made mistakes, for me, that was, I haven't got enough talent. I shouldn't be in front of these people. I haven't got enough talent because I'm making mistakes, right? The thought behind that was only perfect musicians should be allowed to play in front of people, right? So these thoughts, you've got a lot of them and they're tripping us up. So that's why coaching is so good, because coaching will point out those thoughts. And if you come to consultation with me, I will point out immediately what some of those thoughts are, of course. And once you recognize them, you think, is that what I'm thinking? And then you can work towards thinking something different. You can train your brain to think something completely different. Does that make sense? Let me know in the chat. So we are very much conditioned in our lives. I mean, our lives just reflect really what it is we're thinking, doesn't it? When you think about it, what's going on in your mind? Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Andrea. Whatever is surrounding us is really just a reflection of what we allow ourselves to believe we can have. So if you can avoid judging yourself for it and just become curious, that's what I can help you with. So when you come to the consultation, instead of going into the judgment about your thoughts, we'll start getting curious about not where they come from, because we don't need that information to change them. What will happen more likely is that you will identify a thought and then you will go about changing it in little incremental steps. You're not thought swapping. You're not going from I'm completely unworthy to I deserve to have everything good in life, right? We're doing that in little incremental steps. And I think that these little incremental steps can feel very uninspiring, because many people want change fast, like they want transformation tomorrow, right? So for me, that would be, I want my chateau tomorrow. I must go and buy a lottery ticket so that I can win the lottery, or I must go and marry somebody who's living in a chateau or something like that, right? I want the instant transformation instead of looking at, well, who will I be once I'm living that dream life? And how can I start shifting myself into that? What changes can I make today that will bring me closer and closer to that dream life, to being the person who is living that dream life? But that can feel totally underwhelming. Like with many of my clients, we start with self-care. And you think, well, how's that going to get me to my dream life? I'm sure there's some action I need to be out there taking. But what if it was, I mean, the beginning just looked like you saying something kind to yourself in the mirror every morning? What if that was it? If that was it over time, that would have you change your mind that would have you see yourself different, that would change your self-concept into somebody who can make mistakes, who are allowed to be herself, even when she's not perfect. Changing herself into somebody who doesn't care about what other people think of her. Just those three things. Just think about what an impact that could have on your life. Just think about, well, if I didn't mind making mistakes, if I didn't mind what people thought, if I knew that I was lovable no matter what, then what would I be doing? That's what we'll be diving into in the consultation. So when you leave the consultation, you will know what it is that would make you ecstatically happy, and you would know where to start. You would know your first action steps. You would know what mindset you could cultivate that would get you there. And if you want to, I will show you how you could do that with me. So when you come to the consultation, did I mention it was completely free? When you come to the consultation, it will be a privilege for me to listen to you, to get to know you, to find out what your particular circumstances are, what your unique situation, your problems are. And I can detail for you a way out of them, right? I can show you what is possible. When you think of that, what if you spent an hour thinking about what is possible? Have you ever done that? I'd love to know, have you ever sat down with somebody? So Marcella, I know one consultation is not, well, it will get you started. Yeah, it will get you started. It will be your first step. And what's so good about that is that you will know your next step. Yeah, so Andrea spent 1 hour speaking with somebody about what is possible. I love it. Don't you just love thinking about and speaking about and talking about and exchanging about everything that is possible? I think we should all do that. I think we should teach that in schools. What do you think? So please go ahead. If you haven't already booked yourself in, either send me an email or click the link to my online scheduler in the comments here or in the comments on YouTube. Don't think you are stealing my time. I love meeting you. Okay, brilliant. So good to know. And now you are an artist. I'd love to learn more. All right. So whether you're watching this on the replay or watching now, please go ahead. If you haven't done so already, book yourself in for a consultation. It's your first step. Your first step to getting really clear about where it is you want to be going and how to get there. And knowing that this needn't be strife and struggle, this needn't be hard work. It can actually be fun, rewarding, and fulfilling. I like to think about it as, you know, I used to play the harp. So you can play the harp just with the middle strings in the middle here, or you can use the top ones and you can use the bottom ones. You can play on all of the strings. And I like to think of my life as just that. I'm playing on all of the strings. I'm using all of me. I'm using all my talents, all my capacities, and they're expanding every day. That makes me feel good. And another thing about that is it makes me feel very, very safe. So instead of feeling unsafe, instead of focusing on the danger, I can think, I've got so much trust in myself that I think I can put myself in any situation and I can still come out of it. I can survive it perfectly. I can mostly enjoy it. So I'm not really afraid of doing anything new. I don't need to be perfect. I'm okay with being far from perfect because I know that I can learn. If I want to learn, I can learn. If I don't want to learn, I don't have to learn. Right? But I don't have to be fearful of going into new things. I can try out lots of things. So I hope all of this is making sense. Have you got any questions? Recently, I've connected childhood experiences with my feeling of being unsafe, and needing to control everything. Please book a consultation. Let's take this apart. Let's really dive in here so that you can create awareness, and create a lot of self-compassion here. So what also happens to many of us is that we want to make ourselves wrong for something in our past. Like our past wasn't perfect, so how can we be good enough now? Something went wrong in our childhood, and it makes me wrong now, or it's as if I had a scar or a taint, right? Which is far from true, but that's a whole other workshop I won't go into. Let me know if you didn't manage to book a consult, if you didn't find a time that suited you. Could be because of time difference, but really there are times for all over the planet, except I think New Zealand. I think in winter, or is it in summer with New Zealand, we're 12 hours apart, so that's difficult. But if you're in the States, if you're in Canada, if you're any part in Europe, if you're in Australia, there will be a time that will suit your waking hours. And please book one of your waking hours, right? I don't want you to stay up at night. If you can't find a time that suits you, send me an email, right? I'd love to meet up with you. Love to learn more about you. I love people, so I can't meet enough of you. Let me know. Have you got any questions? Oh, you're so welcome. You are more than welcome. And just think of the value of knowing, of having created that awareness. Oh, this is what's happening. So when you manage to identify how you're being perfectionistic, then you know it's not you. Absolutely not you. It's just something you've been trained into doing. If you've been trained into doing it, you can train yourself out of it, right? That's what we can do as human beings. Animals don't have that awareness, I think, but we do. Let's use it. You are so welcome. I'm looking forward to meeting you, right? Any questions, any comments, anything I can do for you right now? So I'm looking forward to meeting up with all of you, and have a lovely rest of your day. Yeah, that's a joke. Yeah, of course. We can just redefine perfect, really. We can just say, this was so perfectly flawed, right? Or this was so perfectly imperfect. But I really enjoyed myself. So thank you for your insightful comments, your questions, and I shall see you shortly in a consultation, I hope. Bye for now.